Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Dr. Lucy and I'm a clinical psychologist based in Melbourne, Australia, and my videos are discussions and reflections on the intersection between Islamic teachings and principles and modern psychology. And in today's video, I wanted to discuss the concept of letting go. And the reason that this has come to my mind recently is I've spoken to a number of people who have talked about their distress and investment in trying to change or control a particular person or a relationship. And the thoughts that's come into my mind as I've spoken to some of these people is not on how they can try harder or do more, but actually in perhaps what they need to do is let go. So in this video, when I'm talking about letting go, it's around when we actually need to get to the point where we're trying to change a person or change a situation, when perhaps what we actually need to do is to take a step back and perhaps let go of trying to change or control a particular person or a relationship. And the reason that this came to my mind is, as I said, I've had a number of people ask me recently similar sorts of questions around someone that they're trying to help in their life. And an example of this is a beautiful lady came and approached me recently, and she was obviously really distressed. She seemed exhausted to me, that she'd been having a lot of problems with her son. And she was saying, my son's suffering from really severe anxiety and he's not doing well in his life, and he's now moved away from the family home, and he's not talking to me, he's not talking to other family members, and he's really pulling away, and I don't know what else to what should I do. And I really felt for this particular person because I could see the distress, and as a mother I could relate to that idea of just wanting to fix and change a child in your life or someone so close in your life that you really want to help, and you can just see them moving further and further away. So I really felt for her when I saw her distress. But when I could see how much she had been trying and how much she'd been tearing herself inside out and how much she kept reaching out to her son day after day and trying to do everything that she could, and her asking me, what else can I do? I wasn't thinking, okay, well, maybe you should try this and maybe you should try that. And maybe you should frame it in this way, or maybe you should try and convince him through that. That wasn't what I was thinking. My first thought is, have you thought about letting go? And when I mentioned this to her, I can understand that idea of her not necessarily giving up on her son, but maybe just taking a step back, maybe pulling back on trying to call him all the time, or trying to push him to do something differently, or trying to get other people involved, that maybe she needed to just kind of take a step back and give him some breathing space and maybe just let him be. And this son of hers, I should have mentioned, is an adult, so he's not a child that she has those parental responsibilities over. And so this is someone who can independently take care of himself. And so when I mentioned, look, maybe you need to let go, maybe you need to step back, that idea was, I could understand that was kind of horrifying for her, because she was like, what do you mean? But if I take a step back, if I let go, if I stop trying, then this situation is just going to keep getting worse. And my question to her was, but everything that you've been doing and everything that you've been trying and all the different things that you've been saying to him and trying to get other people involved and trying to convince him, how has that changed things at this point? And when she stopped for a moment and she said, it's just gotten worse. And so I said to her, look, then maybe if you've tried everything and you're clearly emotionally, mentally, physically exhausted, like she wasn't, sleeping well, she was, her life had just become consumed with what was happening with her son. And I said, look, you're clearly, you yourself are suffering, and all your efforts, as sincere as they clearly are not actually changing the situation. Maybe this is a point where you need to step back, perhaps focus on yourself and your health and what you need to do for you, and maybe just leave him, give him that space to maybe work things out for himself. Now, I can understand that this is not an easy thing to do, particularly for a parent or for anyone that we really love, whether it's a child, whether it's a sibling, whether it's a parent relationship, anyone who we are very invested in and we have a lot of love for and a lot of commitment and loyalty to. It's not an easy thing to say, okay, well, if there's an issue, maybe there comes to a point where you need to step back and let go. But that is something that if we don't do, we can actually lose months or years even of our lives pouring energy into a person or a situation that maybe a person isn't ready to change, maybe they're not willing, or maybe they're not able to. And by us continually trying to push and trying to control and trying to shift things, we could be making ourselves mentally, physically, and emotionally sick. And sometimes it can be even pushing that person further away in the process. But none of us like to feel like someone's trying to change or fix us. When we think about that for ourselves, most of us don't like the idea that someone's trying to come in and fix us or change us. Often that it pushes us further away. But sometimes we can lose awareness that when we're trying to do that for other people, that we may not recognize we may actually be pushing that person further away. And perhaps what we need to do is to let go and take a step back. Now, it doesn't mean that we stop caring about that person. It doesn't mean that we abandon them and we're not there for them. It doesn't mean that, but it may be that we actually need to take a step back from trying to control the situation. And when we do that, sometimes we can then begin to see a situation for what it is. And sometimes we can begin to realize that perhaps a person or a relationship or a situation, perhaps it's not going to change. And perhaps that even if it is, it might not be that something that we are able to control or change. And when we do that, when we take a step back and we start to look at things from a different perspective, or at least from a bit of a distance, we can maybe start to think, okay, if this is not a situation that I can change, then where do I need to redirect my energy to? And there may be other areas of our life that we've actually neglected because we've become consumed by a particular person or a relationship. And it might even be sometimes when we leave someone alone and we stop trying to put so much pressure, sometimes they then work out their own path by themselves without us having to keep interfering and sometimes maybe that person or that relationship will work out in a way that's better than if we had been trying to push or change a particular person. And what it comes down to is that sometimes when we're trying really hard to change someone or change a relationship, it could be that it's actually, we think that perhaps they have the problem and they need to change. And it could be maybe we need to actually look at ourselves. Maybe we are feeling terrified that if we let go, that we're going to lose this person. Or maybe we're not recognizing that we don't have as much control and influence over people around us as we would like. And that may well be a good thing. You know, we all understand the concept of free will, that Allah has given us. Unlike all the other creatures, we have the capacity to think and make decisions for ourselves. And if we can accept that for ourselves, then we need to accept that for other people around us, even if we don't necessarily agree or like the path that they're on. That sometimes we need to take a step back and recognize, you know what, I'm struggling seeing this person go in this particular direction. And me trying to assist them or trying to change things is not actually helping. So maybe I need to work on acceptance and take a step back. And when we look at the Quran, there are many instances where we see righteous men and women, we see prophets who have had to relinquish that effort on people that they love. And this is not an easy thing. There are many stories that maybe we haven't focused on that aspect of their particular story. I think of, for example, Lut alayhi salam, that when the angels came to his town, and these angels came as disguised as travelers, and Lut was trying to protect them from the people of that town. He said, come to my house, these people are not good in this town, and he was trying to protect them. And he didn't know that they were actually angels that had come, and they had actually come to destroy that particular town. And Lut was instructed to leave and to run away to safety, but he had to leave his wife behind. And we don't know how difficult that would have been for him. In his mission, he was not able to bring his wife with him, that she was not on the same path as him. And we can only assume that he, being his wife, that he loved her and that he had tried to advise her. But ultimately, when things came to breaking point, he had to leave her behind. And we can't imagine how difficult that would have been for him. But we can only assume that he had to surrender, because a part of his mission and his journey was that he couldn't take her with him. There are many other instances where we see that. We look at Ibrahim and his father, and he had been advising his father not to be making the idols, that his father, as someone whose profession was to make the idols that the town worshipped, Ibrahim had advised his father so many times, but ultimately, when Ibrahim was essentially kicked out of his town, he lost his relationship with his father. In fact, he lost his relationship with everyone. We know that for some time he was on his own. And again, we don't know how difficult that would have been for him to have to leave everyone that he loved behind, but that was part of his journey. He couldn't bring his father with him or any of the other people in his town. Another example is the story of Noah, that when the floods came and he had built the ark, and he had called out to his son, come and join me, come onto the ark, come be with us, come to safety, we're going to safety. And his son refused. Now, Noah couldn't, physically jump out and go chase after his son, because he would have been drowned in the flood. So Noah had to leave his son. His son refused, and he had to go and go with the people on the ark and the animals on the ark to safety. Again, we don't know how devastating that would have been. But what we see through these stories, that there are many examples where at some point these prophets had to realize or had to let go, because as much as they had tried with their loved ones, they couldn't force them. And that's in essence, when we look at the concept of letting go, it's recognizing that really none of us have got power and control over anybody else. We've only got power and control over ourselves, and nobody is going to change because we want them to, because we're, if we just try and push them in a certain way and we keep trying, ultimately we can try and support someone and be there for them. And what we say might inspire them, it might encourage them. But at the end of the day, no one is going to change because we want them to, or because we put enough pressure on them. In the short term, we might feel like we've achieved some sort of outcome, but ultimately, people around us will only ever change because they want to. And so when we're having to deal with a situation where we're trying really hard to help someone, or we're trying to improve a relationship, and we're finding that we're getting burnt out, and we're finding that it's not improving things, then we need to sometimes question, at which point do I need to recognize that what I'm doing to help this person, or to change this person, or to change the relationship is not working. And we may then need to start the difficult and often painful process of recognizing that I need to let go, take a step back, and maybe redirect my energy elsewhere, maybe redirect on my own trust and connection, my own spiritual connection with God, and leaving that person on their path, being there, being not necessarily cutting them off, not abandoning them, but recognizing that the energy that I'm directing is really just a refusal to accept a situation for what it is. Again, I don't say this is easy, but it's a reminder for all of us that there often comes a point where we need to step back, take a look at that situation from a different vantage point, and maybe say, you know what, maybe it's time I need to let go and maybe focus on my path and other parts of my journey rather than trying to change this person or this situation. I hope this helps, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you for your time and attention.